What's up, everybody? Hope you're all having a good evening. Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show. I know it's a little different with me doing the introduction. We got Doc here that, man, I think Sunday he started off as doubtful. Monday was like teetering questionable. And today was a kind of game time decision. And we decided to come on the show. How you feeling, Doc? He's been a little bit under the weather. Voice is like somewhat gone, but we're gonna truck through this show. How you doing out there?
I'm doing all right, man. I would have been on, but my voice was even worse than this. But we will play through. I was on the injury list, probable, kind of questionable today, but we're pushing through. Eric, you're gonna have to do some legwork today.
I know I am. I know we got the something happened today segment later on, and we're gonna have to highlight you, I think, this time around. But yeah, guys. So we typically would jump on after a finals matchup and just kind of different things that were going on. So we still thought it would be good to jump on and talk preview of Game 3 and a little bit of a recap of Game 2. But first, as always, if you guys can please follow us at all of our socials. We got at Game Injury Doc, at Eric B. Mack on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. We would appreciate it. But more importantly, the show itself, we're on YouTube. We're really trying to build that channel. So definitely we appreciate anybody that's listening anywhere. But it would be amazing if you could subscribe, if you could smash that like button, tell your friends, family. This is something we love doing and we love to share with more and more people. And then, of course, finally, we do have Instagram and last but not least, all the podcasts, Spotify, Apple. And so, yes, please, we'll have our shows tonight and going forward. So I appreciate that. But anywho, and then as well, of course, comments, please let us know if there's anything on your mind on the eve of Game 3 of the NBA Finals. But hey, let's get kind of kickstarted with a little bit of a preview for tomorrow. Doc, what are you kind of leaning into for tomorrow night?
Yeah, so what happened in Game 2 is what we probably thought was going to happen, right? OKC was 18-2 coming off a loss in the regular season and playoffs. And I think the margin of victory was pretty high with those ones as well. So no surprise there. I think Game 3 is going to be huge for primarily Indiana, right? They took the home court away with winning Game 1, but Game 3 is where they solidify the series. And I think it goes both ways, right? If they were to win, that puts them in a really good spot to win the series. And they were to lose, I think OKC will definitely have the advantage and the confidence to kind of finish this out.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a huge surprise that OKC came out and handled business in Game 2. They were able to do what the Knicks weren't able to do in the conference finals. They probably feel like, hey, we've outplayed this team, maybe 7 out of 8 quarters or so, and maybe, majority of the game. And so, but at the end of the day, Indiana, they did what they were kind of went for, right? It would have been great to get 2 games, but realistically, I'm sure if, we told all Indiana fans or Indiana Pacer players, if they could be 1-1 after 2, they would take it any day. But I totally agree about Game 3. I think that it's actually a lot more important for Indiana than it is OKC. And you're probably wondering why. Indiana has home court advantage now, but that's exactly why. All that hard work in Game 1 to sneak out a win would be all for naught, honestly, if they lose Game 3. And if they win Game 3, all the pressure will be on Oklahoma City in Game 4, right? Like that's going to be a Game 7 for them. It's a must win. And so I think Indiana's going to have that mindset tomorrow night. They're going to have to ride the crowd. They're going to have to do some of the things that got them a victory in Game 1.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think it boils down to Tyrese Haliburton, right? He's got to have a huge game, right? He's got to have where he's in both categories. Where he's most important for him, I think he's got to have that 10 to 12 assist range, because without his playmaking ability and the way he runs the Indiana Pacers, they aren't the same if he's averaging 5, 6 assists, right? So I think that'll be the top priority for him. And then Indiana's got to have a 20-point scorer. They haven't had one this whole finals, right? The first 2 games. Yes, it was well balanced in the first game, right? But you have to have that guy go up and beyond the 20-point, maybe get a 30-point, maybe get something out of Siakam like that, right? Yeah. In order to really win this game 3.
You read my mind just right now about Siakam. I think it's got to be Haliburton. He's got to get others involved, but I think in terms of like from a scoring perspective, when they faced the Knicks, when he was on and he got you that 25 to 30 plus is when they were winning. And I think he's going to have to come out and get those kind of same numbers. When we were doing a preview of the finals, I recall we're going over matchups, and that was one that we really, really favored Indiana and Siakam. And so, we got to see it, I think, in game 3. But yeah, like they, well balanced is right. You looked at game 1, you're like, oh wow, like everybody had a piece of the pie or contributed, and that's all fine and dandy. But when you have like a game, right, game 3, game 4, game 5, NBA finals, you got to have that stud come out and really take over. Because it's not going to be very typical that you're going to have 7-8 guys scoring like 18 to 20 points a night. And so that's what I'll be looking for, an uber aggressive Siakam.
Yeah, you hit that right on the spot, because Siakam's pretty much what makes a difference in this series, and also just for the Indiana Pacers, right? They need that dominance from him, and they just need a primary scorer. And the reality is Tyrese is not really that person. He's right. I think on the season he averaged 17 or maybe 19, 17 and 11, right? So that's not what he does best. Like, he's a pass first guard. He's always wanting others to get involved. So I think you just need that extra score out of him. And then they need, Obi Toppin has been playing so well for them, and in game 2 he just had a really rough game. So if you can get that 10 to 15 spot from Obi Toppin too, I think that would be a big difference.
Absolutely. We've illustrated pretty much all playoffs long. We've been following Haliburton quite a bit, and we've talked about how there's been some peaks and valleys. But at the end of the day, like, he is he is who he is in terms of scoring. Sure, it looks like he's got that clutch gene, and like, if it's a close game at the end of the game and I was the opponent, I wouldn't want him with the ball. But in terms of high, octane, a whole bunch of productivity from a point standpoint, we can't always expect that, but we do need to see those assists. You know how it is at home, right? The others, like your Toppins, a couple of the other guys there, I think they'll definitely step up. They seem to be a little bit more comfortable sleeping in their own bed or what have you. It just tends to happen in the playoffs, and so they're going to need those guys for sure. And they'll it's going to be tough. Like, I think OKC probably figures, like I mentioned earlier, they've kind of dominated most of the series so far. But it is 1-1 at the end of the day. And so they're going to do a lot of like what they have done all year long. I don't see them making any huge adjustments so far. They're going to be, guarding full court, half court, being all over, all over the place. So in terms of from an OKC standpoint, they're going to do what they do, but the Pacers are going to have to pick up the pace, and it's going to have to be a Pacers style basketball game for them to win it. But yeah, in terms of carry over from game 2, or what did you see kind of in game 2 that was different from game 1?
Yeah, I was trying to sit back and when it got to halftime, and I felt like the Pacers were satisfied. They were satisfied going into game 2, and they played that way. So they played like they wanted the split, which they got the game 1, which is what they really wanted, and we're kind of satisfied going into game 2. I don't want to keep talking about Tyrese too much, but he can't be passive for 3 quarters, and that's what he's done this whole series. Passive for 3 quarters in the first game, kind of started getting things together last couple of minutes of the fourth. Passive for 3 quarters in game 2, got 12 measly, no like reason buckets in the fourth quarter, right? He got himself going a little bit. Maybe that will help carry over for game 3, but it really didn't mean anything for game 2. So you just can't have a passive Tyrese for 3 quarters, or else OKC will be dominating this game.
Yeah, Haliburton's going to be definitely somebody that we'll be talking about a lot, just because he's a big part of the series. And so when he's hitting game winners, we're going to talk about it. But when it's just not quite there, we're going to do the same. And you're right. He had like from game 2, was it 5 points through 3 quarters? Sometimes you could take a little bit out of a game, even though it seems like all for naught. They obviously still lost. And so hopefully for Indiana's sake, that does carry over. I think in the finals is interesting, like with these big gaps. It just seems like, man, it's been so long since they played. I don't know, it's just weird. Feels that way. It's only been a couple of days, but so you tend to like wonder how much of a carryover effect it is when there is such a gap. And then kind of what you alluded to, where we weren't used to seeing Indiana be kind of okay with just getting one game and not being greedy. And so I think we saw a little bit of that. I don't think it was obviously all that. It was also OKC knowing, hell, we got to win this game. We lose this game, we're down 0-2. It's all but a wrap. So, I think it was a little bit of everything. First quarter was like relatively close. It looked like it was going to be a battle. But then right when it got to that 8, 10, 12 point lead, you could really tell that OKC was in control. And in the third quarter, it was either going to kind of similar to game 1. It was either going to go one way or the other. That 14, 15 point lead was going to come down to 7 or 8, or it was going to expand to 20-21. And that's what it ended up doing. And I think once it got to that point, it was like, you know what? Indiana's had these miraculous comebacks, but I feel like this is probably it for game 2.
Yeah, 100% with that one. And when you're talking about OKC,
yep,
we know what we're going to get at Shea. He's going to check into the game and get 30 points. Like, we know that it's a given, right? But and we probably know if they were to win, he would be MVP. But to Absolutely. Me, the MVP on this team is Alex Caruso. I mean, he comes in game after game and brings energy like no other defensive player there is in this league. And then he also chipped in and got you 20 points last game. So if he's doing that, he's hitting his threes, he's hitting his open shot, he's getting hands in every window possible and getting deflections, getting steals, taking charges. He's definitely by far, I wouldn't say he's their, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. He's their second most valuable player on this team. Because my reason is, yes, you got Jalen Williams, and he's a great player. He's all-star. He's doing great. But you don't really know what you're going to get from him every game. You know what you're going to get from Shea that's consistent. Chet, you definitely don't know what you're going to get every game.
Right.
But you know one thing with Alex Caruso. He's going to bring the energy on defense, and he's going to make your team better just by him being on the floor. And so to me, he's just the unsung MVP of the series, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of these guys that you need in a championship run. They knew what they were doing when they traded for him in the offseason. They knew that he was going to be a hard-nosed type player throughout the season, but when it counted most, when last year they felt a little short because I feel they needed a little bit more grit, maybe someone that doesn't really care about stats, that will just come in and just those guys, like you said, they're the same every game. And if he can get you a 20, like he did in game 2 of the finals, that's just gravy. He's definitely worked on his game tremendously. I know, obviously us being Laker fans, when he was on the Lakers, like he was great. But we know that, teams would probably sag off him and let him shoot threes and things like that because it was a little bit more of a liability. But man, he's definitely worked on that part of his game. Big 20 points for him. I mean, for us too, like Laker fans, like we recall like the golden years and the good old years. Like we had, like, for example, Shaq and Kobe Powell, but we know that there were so many big moments in the playoffs that were won by, your Robert Ory's, right? Even Rick Fox, Derek Fisher. And so those guys are just so big to a team. And I kind of compare like a Caruso to them, where he doesn't have all the accolades in terms of like those big shots quite yet. But I see him hitting like a big three, like end of the game, right? Or something like that. And even if he doesn't, as you said, he's just tremendous defensively. And that's what OKC is all about. I alluded to it a little earlier in the show, where OKC is going to do what they do. And if you can beat them, you got to come with your A++ game.
Yeah, I like that point with Caruso being one of those like Robert Ory's, just that unsung hero that you're always going to get a consistent game out of him, right? It's not going to be like that 30, 40-point scorer, but he's going to hit the big shot. He's going to get the big steal. He's going to do something impactful on the game. And it might not always be in the box score, right? But he's always going to do something. If you're watching the game, he's a part of it. And you have to have players like that. And he's the type of player that, say OKC wins this finals, that would be his second championship, right? He's the type of player that I wouldn't doubt would probably get like 3, 4, 5 championships by the end of his career, because he's so important to a team, right? And like you'll be like, damn, you'll be looking back on Caruso's career and be like, damn, he has 4 or 5 chips just based on whatever team he's kind of entered and done well with. So it's cool to see, especially as Laker fans, to kind of see the development of Alex Caruso.
It's cool. And then for front office has got to be, kicking themselves. Not to go back, 4 or 5 years or whatever the hell it was, but this goes to show.
How much money did we now? Oh, no, sorry. Not money. Do you know who we kept instead of Alex Caruso?
Freaking, gosh, don't tell me it was our boy.
Never trading him. We're not going to trade him. THT, baby.
That was a THT. Yeah.
THT.
And it was that one preseason that like or whatever that he like was just like thin and like, you remember he was just balling in that one preseason, and it was like, oh man, or summer league or whatever it was. But yeah, it was. I know like the Lakers, they're not in a, even though it's hard to believe, but they're not in a position to pay like all these luxury taxes, right? And so that was part of it, but they had the choice to cut bait with THT or sign him, and so we can look back and say that was obviously a big mistake. But hey, he went to Chicago. They didn't have a lot of success with him there, obviously, but he definitely worked even more on his game, as you can see, while he was there the 2 or 3 years, and he was probably just chomping at the bit to, I guess, go back. Didn't he kind of start off with OKC, their G League team or something like that? So.
Yeah, he was undrafted there and was actually with the same coach in the G League. So Mark Daigneault, he was coaching him at the time. So it's pretty cool to see in the future what they're looking like, and they're in the finals, right? My question is, do you think that OKC will just continue their defensive prowess throughout this series? Like, what do you think Indiana can do to kind of slow it down or speed it up per se?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's gonna just sound similar to like when OKC played Denver, OKC played Minnesota, was just, find these ways to just get easy baskets so that they don't suffocate you in a slow paced game. And so, maybe Indiana, they've like just kind of from a eye test, they're really digging in defensively. It's just, they have these lulls where OKC will go on a quick 8-0 run, in a matter of like a minute and a half, or like a 14-3 spurt or something. And so I think Indiana's got to have to limit those. We know it's a game of runs. It's going to happen. And with going back to defense, pick up the defensive intensity, create turnovers yourself, right? And then easy baskets and move that ball, right? And have a big focus on Siakam. Just feed him, make whoever's guarding him just work. And feed off the crowd, right? Indiana's at home, as I mentioned earlier. Get off to that hot, quick start. And so those are some of the things that I can see them needing to do to pick up a victory.
Yeah, for sure. I think OKC, when they went bigger to last game, having Chet and Hartenstein in the lineups, and I think that was a big difference for them. They were able to, especially in the second half, because that was the thing in the second half. In game one is that they just went too small, and Indiana out rebounded them. They got to the hustle points. Their defense wasn't as good in that second half versus game two. And I think having some of that big lineup in there is going to be important for them kind of moving forward there.
Yeah. And I know we talked a lot about the starting lineup change, but I didn't realize that they didn't go to the two big lineup at all in game one. Because when they played together in game two in like the second quarter or whatever it was, the announcer said, "Oh, this is the first time in the series that they've gone with the two big guys." So they actually, not only did they not start them in game one, but they didn't go to it at all. And so I think they sure, they didn't change back the starting lineup, but I think they saw that they can cause some havoc with having those two big guys in there. Hartenstein was a plus. I was just looking right now, plus 17 when he was out there, so he obviously had a effect on the game. And so I see them to look to do more of that. And if they do that, Indiana's just gonna have to try to even pick up the pace even more and make them kind of go back to a smaller lineup. And so that's kind of what I look forward to seeing.
Yeah, that's interesting that they didn't even go to that lineup at all in game one, right? And it's a lineup that's got them throughout the whole playoffs. So kind of surprising that they just kind of felt like they had to get rid of it. And I think he learned from game two. Yes, he get the same starting lineup, but I think he learned that he had to play those guys together because that gives them the best probably defensive spacing that they have to create more havoc on defense for them. Especially when like Caruso's out there, like that lineup of Caruso when they have Chet and they have Hartenstein, and there's some combo that is pretty lethal on defense, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, because like I was saying earlier, first quarter was like closer. I wouldn't say it was by all means high scoring at all, but Indiana seemed to look a little bit more fluid offensively. But when they had those three guys out there, it was just like, let's just shut this down. And then you throw a Dort, if he was in there, at times I'm sure too. But this is like go time. These next 4 or 5 minutes, like you're not gonna get anything on us, right? And so, and then you just have Shea out there with him, just picking them apart and popping and getting his guys involved. And so, man, I think we'll probably see more of that. And what I'm looking forward to is just really the counter by Indiana now, and see what RC, Rick Carlisle has up his sleeve for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see what adjustments are going to be made in this game 3. I had a question for you. If you had to pick a player on each team to be the difference maker in this game 3, who would it be and why?
Well, I think I've mentioned Siakam a couple of times, and I know, I could pick a role player, a bench player, but I really, truly think that it showed me in New York when he is aggressive offensively, they're just better off. And so I'm going to look at him specifically tomorrow. I'm going to see what he does. I'm going to make sure to keep an eye on if he's demanding the ball and kind of doing what he does with his, kind of slithery, unorthodox like style. Right. And so I would say him. And then on the OKC side, looking at Chet actually. I think first 2 games, little like from an offensive standpoint, a little subpar, not like huge minutes, right? In the 20s. I think that they're at their best when he's contributing in a bigger way. And so I'm kind of looking at him, and I want to see if it's just a matchup. Is it something to do with who he's facing, or did he just have a couple pedestrian games? And so those are the 2 guys I'll be looking out for that will be keys for me in Game 3. What about yourself?
Yeah, for me, obviously there's obvious people, Siakam, Haliburton. For me on the Indiana side, it is Nembhard. I need him to have one of those games where he's guarding Shea like hardcore, making him tired, kind of getting into his face like he did in Game 1, and then also hitting some big baskets. I think they're going to need a huge game out of him tomorrow night. And then on the OKC side is Jalen Williams. Show me why you're NBA All-Star. Show me why you feel you're the second best player. You haven't scored over 20 points in this series yet. Had 17 and 19. I need a 20 plus, probably 30 plus out of you tonight or tomorrow night. And I just expect him to have a big game because I feel like he's being a little passive. His shot's been off a little bit too. So that's one thing. But I think he's got to take advantage and really just got to take advantage of some of his matchups that he gets on the court, because I feel like he has some advantages against some of the smaller players on Indiana.
That's funny. Before I said Chet Holmgren, I was really like, I almost had like Jalen Williams on like the tip of my tongue. Because you're right, he's been really inefficient in these first couple of games, and throughout the playoffs. Let's be honest, there's been some times where it's like, hey, where's the All-Star at? Where's this like second best player? And so, I agree. I think it's got to be one of those 2 guys that have to really show that they're either 2A and 2B or what have you, and come out and play the ball that we've pretty much been seeing them play all series long, or all season long. Sorry.
Yeah, that's for sure. So let's get to some important matters here in our Something Happened Today segment. And I'll put on one of the comments from one of our guests on YouTube here. Haliburton is not healthy. He is limping. I am confident that's why he is passive. Okay. So let's get into what we saw in the press conference after Game 2. And he was limping pretty significantly. Like when you saw it, you're like, well, that's random. You didn't really see anything in the game that you knew was a specific injury. There's one play, though. I wish I could rewind it, but I didn't record the game. Where it was in the 4th quarter, and he had to make I forgot who passed it to him up the court, but he had to make a dead sprint, like super, super quick, and kind of stop on the dime. And I remember being like, God, why is he in the game? There's like 5 minutes to go. Just the way like that play looked, I'm like, man, he could have easily hurt his hamstring, could have strained a calf, something like that, right? And then kind of after that point, I was like, oh, he just kind of jogging around, didn't really look like he was really into the game after that. So goes into the press conference, you see that, but nobody's really talking about it. They get to practice yesterday and today, and 2 things. Rick Carlisle said he was in some discomfort, and it's a lower leg injury, which who knows what that means, right? Yeah. Haliburton said, I'm fine. I'm going to play Game 3. That's obviously player talk, coach talk. They're going to say, yeah, I'm going to play. No big deal. There's been no diagnose. Nobody's saying anything. Obviously, it's the NBA Finals. They're not going to tell you right now.
Right.
So my thing is, I did look at the tape that he had on today at practice, and it was actually coming up the calf a little bit right below your main muscle of the gastroc. It was around where we call our soleus, which is part of our calf muscle, and then probably up the Achilles. So if I had to put 2 and 2 together, it seems that it's definitely not like an ankle injury. because the tape job was going all the way up the calf, the backside of the leg. He either has some sort of soreness or something going on in his Achilles or calf, which can be very concerning kind of moving forward. I just don't know if he strained it or anything.
Yeah, it was kind of similar. I mean, obviously different injury and things like that, but I thought of like game 6, I think it was, when Aaron Gordon pulled his hamstring, where it was like a game was well in hand and you're like, man, still out there and just crazy. And that's, I mean, it could obviously happen in the first quarter, but it's like a bummer when it's like game is out of hand and it happens. And so hopefully it's nothing serious, but as you alluded to, or as you mentioned, it is something, and it is the finals. There's going to be some gamesmanship, unless it's a very obvious, like, oh, this guy can't go. They're not going to say anything, but you know, we know that it's going to be tough enough for Indiana, but they need a as healthy as much as possible Haliburton to have a chance. And I'm hoping it's just one of these like precautionary things, and you know, hopefully that extra day and of rest, right, helps a little bit. I know game 4 is just going to be your typical, just, you know, one day in between. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, man, it's definitely a concern. We didn't want something that happened today to happen during the finals, but it's just inevitable because you know, there are some guys that we're going to talk about that aren't, you know, even playing right now. But yeah, man, let's see how he looks like. Right, the first, like, we'll be interested in the first quarter, right, to see kind of how he's moving around and what he's got.
Yeah, I think we'll know if it's anything significant in the first quarter, right? If you see him kind of limping around or just not moving the way he normally would, I'd be a little more concerned. I think if it was something serious, they would have said it. They would have said he's dealing with something, but it could still be gamemanship, and we won't really know until he kind of goes out there in game 3.
Absolutely. Let's wish him the best, and like I said, let's have these guys as close to 100 as possible, so we can, you know, get a good series out of these finals and go from there.
For sure. And then I just want to get to a report that came out yesterday about Darius Garland and what he was dealing with going into the end of the season and in the playoffs. Obviously, he had a pretty significant toe injury. They didn't say exactly what it was, but more than likely it was probably some sort of turf toe, which is basically you sprain the MTP joint of the big toe. And so more than likely he tore some ligaments there, which he has to have surgically repaired. So he will be out for about 4 to 6 months in that range. So possibly more than likely missing the beginning of next season. And probably not just to ramp up and kind of get to the end of his rehab. But yeah, it's unfortunate, right, type of injury, and that's why you kind of saw how he played in the playoffs and how difficult it was for him.
Yeah, I remember, you know, when he was out towards the end of the Miami series, and then of course the series against Indiana. We did even talk about that, I believe, like it being kind of like a football injury, typically like a turf toe. And we didn't really know the severity of it. And he was obviously out there because they needed him because they were down in the series. And so, yeah, man, he was definitely playing on 9 toes. And, you know, that's like not, I mean, there's no way he could be who he typically is with that. It's just one of those probably nagging type injuries that can only get resolved if it's repaired surgically, it sounds like. And so, yeah, I imagine he'll be out to start the season. That's typically kind of what happens with these injuries. I don't think there's a huge rush to have him back. I would imagine they want him, you know, at 100% before they do so.
Yeah, that's for sure. So well wishes to him in his surgery and rehab, but he'll be back at 100% after that. Now, let's get into our game 3 predictions.
Yes, sir.
I'll let you go first, Eric. Who you got?
Well, I first off want to say that, in my opinion, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think Indiana really has to take care of business both games in Indiana. I think it's going to be tough. I think if it's 2-2, like before the series, I'm sure probably any team would have taken it. But that being said, I do like OKC in game 3. I think if Indiana is going to get one, I believe it would be potentially game 4. I just kind of like what I saw in game 2, and I expect that to carry over in game 3. What about yourself?
So I was looking at the stats for the game 3s for both teams.
Okay.
Indiana is 0-3 in the playoffs because they won the first 2 games of each series. Now OKC is 1-2 in game 3s as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They both haven't really been too good in the game 3s, and partly that's probably because they've had a lead in the series, right? Or they're up 2-0 or up 1-1, whatever it was, or tied to a 1-1. But for Indiana's sake, they're up 2-0 in each one. So it's like the other team is bound to get a game. I feel that evens out this game 3, right? Because they both are fighting for the same thing. It's knotted up at 1-1. And I think this bodes well for Indiana and some home cooking. I do think Indiana pulls out game 3 and makes this a hell of a series. Because if they do win this game, this puts absolute pressure on OKC, especially going into game 4. And just in general, it almost like I think it takes that, like, because there's this lore of like how good OKC is, and I think if you can knock them down to go 2-1. I think that just shakes their confidence just a tad.
Yeah, there's a good chance that Indiana doesn't go 0-4 in game 3s in the playoffs, and just from like a statistical standpoint, like they're bound to get one. And so, also if Indiana loses, it's like they probably got to win the next 3, realistically, right? And so that's like not going to be easy. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's more important for Indiana to win versus OKC in this game. And so maybe that alone will kind of propel them to a victory. I don't know. My OKC in 5, I feel like it's still there. So, and if they handle business in game 3, where it's kind of, they take the game running away, I'm going to come on and say, look out. I see what's happening here. I'll get my gentleman's broom, but before you know it. But yeah, man, I look forward to it. Kind of hope Indiana wins. So then I think that guarantees most likely a 6-game series, if not 7. And so we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
That's for sure. Looking forward to the game. Before we get on out of here, what in the hell are the New York Knicks doing?
I know, that's true.
Head coaching
a bonus segment. Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that.
Before we get on out, Shams reported tonight that they have reached out to Houston and Minnesota to interview those 2 head coaches. And what do you think those 2 teams said?
Are they going to go for Spo? Are they going to go for Spo tomorrow?
And then the second report was they're going to reach out to Dallas and see if Jason could would. And Dallas, what do you think Dallas is going to say? Hell to the motherfucking no. Okay. There's no way in hell any team is going to let that coach go to the Knicks. It's almost like, you remember when the Lakers always have the Lakers tax with like free agents and trades and stuff like that? The Knicks are like that with head coaches. Ain't no team going to let their head coach go to the Knicks to be a head coach.
It's like, come on, man. Where's the originality? Like, sure. Like, it'd just be so easy in like the 90s. Like, oh, let's go ask if Bulls will let us take on Phil Jackson or interview him or whatever. Or, Phil on the Lakers or whatever, Dre Sloan in Utah. And like the list goes on and on. Right? Greg Popovich. One of those teams should have just tried to squeeze him out of San Antonio. It's like, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing? We got some guys out there that are that we talked about that really are the probably favorites to get the job. But I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess there's nothing wrong in trying. I just think like it's a waste of time. Like find a real candidate. That's all I got to say, New York. Come on, do better.
Knock, knock.
Who there?
Mike Malone.
I know.
Hire him as your head coach and just be done with this. Okay? Thank you.
The dog had to he was saving his voice for this segment, I think, because it is like Michael Malone, however he likes to be called. And so, yeah, man, come on. I mean,
I'm ready to risk my voice all night to talk about this Knicks, about what's going on. But yeah, they need to get serious with this. Interview Mike Malone, and then interview one of those young up and coming assistants, and just see. You got two spectrums, right? You can get a head coach with experience and championship experience, and then you can get a up and coming rising young star. Can that person lead a veteran lace team, or do you need the veteran coach? Simple as that.
Simple as that. You got your roster. It's pretty much set. We've talked about how the East is pretty much wide open the next couple seasons. This is your chance to really take a crack at, take a stab at it. That might be the opportunity to get that high profile coach like a Michael Malone that's been there before. But it remains to be seen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, does he want to come back this year? Does he want to take a year off? Does he like that job? That's a big factor too. So we shall see.
All righty.
Well, I think
this
that
was a questionable night for the doc, but
man.
I feel ready to go, and tomorrow night I'll be ready to go as well. A little rest and recovery, and my voice will be much better sounding. Sorry about that. When you're listening to this on the podcast about my voice, I apologize, but yes, I was under the weather the last day or two. So.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for jumping on, Doc. I know it was a little bit tough. But yeah, man, questionable, don't matter. Still came on and still did his thing. And so, I think that puts a bow on tonight. Appreciate the support from everyone that was listening. Again, please hit that subscription on the YouTube channel. And let's see what happens in game 3. Looks like we'll be on. We'll be giving you our recap. We're going to be talking about what to expect in game 4 after we see what happens in game 3. And it's a big one. It's a big one. When it's 1-1, we know what happens in game 3. Typically the winner moves on to win the series. So with that being said, Hoops Rehab Show is out.
See you guys. Thank you.
Peace.